So in this video we'll have a look at Hatshepsut's titles. We'll look at those she held both being a king and prior to her being a king when she was a queen and before that a member of the royal household. We'll try and identify what are conventional and what are not conventional or a little bit unusual and see how well she fulfilled those expectations that she had placed upon her with these different roles. So the first pre-kingly title she held was King's eldest daughter, which was conventional. It was very much the expectation and what the title that she would have held and what people would expect her to have held during this time period, because she was the daughter of the King Thutmose I. She also held the title King's Great Wife because she was the wife of the King Thutmose II. She also incidentally held the title King's sister because she was also the sister of Thutmose II. Again, all of these are completely conventional and normal and what we would expect someone in her position to have during this time period. She also held the title regent. Now we can debate whether the regency itself was customary, but having the title regent is not up really for debate. It was a conventional title that one would hold if you were fulfilling a regency position and looking after the role for a king who was too young. So again, she draws all of these titles. They all demonstrate the relationship she has to the king. So one's describing her as a daughter, one's describing her as the wife, sister, or the regent. So her importance is expressed through the relationship that she has to the king, and that comes across in all of these titles. She also has that title, which we think is probably a priestly title, God's Wife of Amun, which was shared by many of the royal women during this time period. So again, none of this is outside of convention. It's all very normal. One unusual one that she did hold, however, during her regency was one called Mistress of the Two Lands, which is very clearly modelled after the king's version of this title, which is Lords of the Two Lands, of the Lord of the Two Lands. So that was a very specific kingly title, and she borrowed it, feminized it, turned it into Mistress of the Two Lands, and used it while she was the regent. And that's really important because some historians like Robbins and Redford would suggest that she's actually using this time period to consolidate her position and to try and launch a claim to the throne a little bit later on. And this would seem to maybe support that, the fact that she's borrowed this kingly title and feminized it and used it to describe herself during the regency. So her kingly titles were generally conventional. She took on the fivefold titles of a king, or the fivefold titulary of a king. The first one is called Mart Kare, which was her throne name, and that means the true one of the Ka of Ra. The next title is called Numt Amun Hatshepsut, and this was her personal name. What it meant was that she was the foremost of the noble ladies. She is united with Amun Hatshepsut. That's what the actual name actually means. The next one is Wezeret Cow, which was her Horus name, and that means the strong of Kas. Interestingly, in her Horus name, she didn't follow the tradition of her husband Thutmose II and brother, and Thutmose III, who both had references to bulls in this, which were very strong, very masculine names, whereas she chose not to do that with her Horus name. You can read about that in our resources in class, but her Horus name is far more feminine and doesn't have that reference to the bull. She also has Netjeret Cow, which is her Horus gold name, which means divine in her diadems. And finally, she had Webti Wadjet Renput, which is her Nebti name, which is the two ladies' name, flourishing of years. So that's a bit of an overview. You do need to know, at the very least, Mart Kare as her throne name, and the more of these you can remember, the better. And obviously that reference to the Wezeret Cow, her Horus name, not being as strongly masculine as perhaps Thutmose III or Thutmose II's were, is an interesting point to make as well.